Good morning. Thank you for joining me again for this second part of the example you can't escape, keeping clear connections and hankering for hunger. Last time we looked at tree roots and what they say to us about community and its importance. And this time we're moving upward as we're talking once again about the tree in Psalm 1, a metaphor for our lives, the tree being the third most prevalent living thing talked about in Scripture after God and man. The psalmist is speaking of the tree as a living thing which pulls life, water, and dissolved minerals into itself, and likens this to the man, the woman who delights in and meditates on the law of the Lord, the Word of God. The tree does this, as we know, by its system of tubes, its xylem, these clear and unobstructed delivery paths from ground to crown. Jesus, in John 15, works with the tree metaphor, actually reworking it a bit and calling forth another metaphor used throughout the Old Testament, that of Israel as God's vineyard, from whom the divine owner hoped to reap a harvest. And we all know how that turned out. Despite the prophets warning and prophesying and some good kings and leaders of Judah making some reforms, God's chosen people just weren't capable of being a good vineyard. And neither are we. Here's Jesus to the rescue in John 15. I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch of mine that does not bear fruit he takes away, and every branch that does bear fruit he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. Already you are clean because of the word that I have spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, and you are the branches. Whoever abides in me, and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. God's people Israel, and we all, having failed being the trunk of the tree. So Jesus is showing us here, I'm the trusty trunk, who is the source of life for you, the branches. We're going to look at Psalm 1 again in just a minute, but before we do, I wanted to make it clear that we can't take life into ourselves apart from being connected to Jesus. He's the source of life and not anything we do or set up as a ritual. He's initiated the connection with us, doing for us what we could never do by opening the way to God through his body, offered freely for us on the cross. We are not here in this life to be strong in and of ourselves, to be a strong and sturdy trunk taking sustenance into ourselves. We're here to be connected to him, have a relationship with him, receive life through him. Monk, poet, and author Thomas Merton said it this way: as long as we are on earth, our vocation, listen well, our vocation is precisely to be imperfect, incomplete, insufficient in ourselves, changing, hapless, destitute, and weak. We can do that, right? He goes on, what we must attain to in this life is not perfect acts of virtue, but a life from which practically all the obstacles to God's love have been removed or overcome. Walking with Christ is about making sure the channels to God are clear and open for his life to pass into us, just like those very slender tubes running up the tree from its roots are clear for the tree's water and sustenance to make it up the tree, to the crown, to the leaves. This is where confessing sin comes in. Sin can certainly obstruct our clear pathway to God. This is where we need each other to help us see where we might be holding on to something that's blocking God's life from flowing into us. We learn from one another what abiding in Christ looks like. And these are just a few examples of what can obstruct our life. My daughter Debs has a baby girl, Sadie, and I see Sadie doing the very same thing I recall Debs doing as a baby. She was obsessed with focusing on my mouth and the mouths of other people, and her daughter seems to be the same. It was as if she wanted to see exactly how I formed the words so that she could do the same as she was learning language. And I recall seeing her little lips when she was a little older than 4 months, making the same shapes as she saw me do. And she got quite good at it. talking, I mean. A few weeks back, my other granddaughter, Vivi's PT, told my daughter, Mersey, and me that we would have to start wearing, of all things, bright red lipstick, not something that Mersey and I are wont to do. Anyway, it was an alarming thought to us both, but the reason for it was because of Vivi's chemotherapy. She's lost a substantial amount of her hearing and is getting used to wearing hearing aids. The therapist said it will be so important for her to see how our lips are forming themselves to speak so that she can imitate speech. For example, another example, when at 40 I got back into the ski slopes after 20 years of not skiing, I found that what I hungered for was not that the instructor would tell me how to do something, but what I hungered for was to follow behind the instructor as he was skiing so I could see what he was doing and I could copy it with my body. We're imitators. Paul says in 1 Corinthians 11, imitate me as I imitate Christ. When Jesus asks us to go into all the world and make disciples, part of that is being careful to be like Christ so that you're not being a poor image of him for a new believer. And of course, none of us are perfect. And seeing Christ in the Word of God is indispensable to us in imitating him, looking in that direct mirror, as it were, to see Jesus. So let's head back to Psalm 1 and meditation on God's Word. Meditation is for us something which, according to Eugene Peterson, concentrates our energies into listening attention. It's taking a little bit of the Word of God and reading it and rereading it, learning it, mulling it around, turning it over, even asking questions of it, making it our own. Like a tree which needs the water and dissolved minerals flowing into it, we need the life of God in his Word to flow into us. Sometimes, unlike a tree, we're just not that hungry for this life of God. You know, you can ask him to make you hungry for his life. I've done it. Millions and millions of his people over the years have done that. He's happy to answer that prayer. We'll talk more about the benefits of meditation next time, but I think that you'll find that as things are with our gracious God, if you move close to him by making a small effort to take his word into you, he will meet you with gangbusters and bless you in it. You'll be surprised. You don't have to be a scholar to be blessed by meditating or thinking about chewing on God's word. You just have to be willing to make an effort to read and reread and keep a short passage of scripture before your eyes. The blessed man or woman delights in God's word and hungers enough for it that she or he will make time to set it before their eyes and make room for it in their hearts with that clear, unobstructed channel that from our point of view, we do all that we can to keep it clear and unobstructed. I want to close with this little story that weaves together delight and hunger. I love this story, and I know I've shared it before, so I apologize if you've heard it. Maurice Sendak, author of many books, such as Where the Wild Things Are, related this story. Once a little boy sent me a charming card with a little drawing on it. I loved it. I answer all my children's letters, sometimes very hastily, but this one I lingered over. I sent him a card, and I drew a picture of a wild thing on it. I wrote, "Dear Jim, I loved your card." Then I got a letter back from Jim's mother, and she said, "Jim loved your card so much, he ate it." That, to me, was one of the highest compliments I've ever received, said Sendak. He didn't care that it was an original Maurice Sendak drawing or anything. He saw it, he loved it, he ate it. My prayer for you today is that you would keep your connection to God clear and unobstructed so that his life can flow into you, and that as part of that, you would really see a passage of God's word, that you'd love it, and that you'd eat it.